The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18-plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me. Taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Good morning, I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Before we begin, I'd like to invite you to a special program on Wednesday, the 29th, 2 p.m. at one of my favorite places, the Sheen Center, 18 Bleecker Street in New York City. It's a play entitled Miracle on South Division Street. And I'm going to be in a talkback with Mary Lou Pagano, who is the executive director of the Sheen Center. We'll be speaking about the intersection of faith, identity, and the importance of storytelling as a means to interfaith dialogue. So join me Sunday at the Sheen Center, 2 p.m. Reverend Bernard, we are most privileged to have with us the 46th Controller of the City of New York, the Honorable Mark Levine, whom both of us have been privileged to know for some time. And it's a difficult time to be a controller, but I can think of no one else right now in the city who could do it better. So welcome, Mark Levine.
Well, Rabbi, thank you, and Reverend, thank you. Just so appreciate both of your leadership, and your voices are more important than ever. Honored to be on the show again.
Thank you.
And look, I'm really privileged to be in this role. I do think that the role of comptroller is important at any time, but given all the challenges now in the budget, in the economy, etc., I think this role is more important than ever. And I'm all in to fight for the city, to fight for our economy, and to fight for our budget.
With that said, that's a great place to start because the governor is pushing an idea along with the mayor to tax, put a real estate tax on some of those high-priced condos in the city. Can you speak to that?
Yes, these are high-priced homes that are not occupied by someone who lives in New York City. These are people who maybe have an apartment for occasional visits that, or even as investment properties. And these are often extremely wealthy people because these are apartments that cost $5 million and up. And yes, they're known as pied-à-terres. And those folks are not paying income tax here because they're not claiming residence. And so, in my opinion, they're not contributing their fair share to the cost of operating city government, even if they're here for months out of the year and benefit from all sorts of city services. So for me, this is a matter of fairness that people who are wealthy enough to be able to have a second home valued at $5, $10, $25 million are just going to give a little bit more to help us pay for essential city services, from police to fire to parks to sanitation.
Rabbi, if I may, though, because I have a follow-up question, because I was reading an article in the city about this whole thing, and they were comparing $87 million penthouse apartments in the city, but when it comes to how they're market valued to pay taxes, they're valued, an $87 million condo, they valued at $3.8 million and paying city tax on that. It speaks to the convoluted tax system here in New York City. How do you respond to that?
This is actually very complicated, and it's through our property tax system. It's just desperate for reform. It's inefficient and confusing and very unequal. It actually taxes a brownstone in, say, East New York at a much higher rate than a comparable brownstone in, say, Park Slope. So we've got to reform the property tax system, and actually past efforts to reform have included something like a pied-à-terre tax, but it's never gotten to the finish line because it's also complicated, politically complicated. There's something else here as well, which is that the assessed value of an apartment generally has nothing to do with what it would cost to buy the apartment. And this is especially a problem in co-ops, which are so many of the expensive homes in New York City, where really it's the building that has the assessment. They're not assessing individual units per se. So that adds another layer of complexity here. But I think these things can be worked out. It's going to take some work. But ultimately, this would help generate much needed income for the city, and I do think it's a basic matter of fairness.
We're talking with Controller Mark Levine, 46 Controller of the City of New York. Controller, let me ask you, what do you say to those people who will tell you, look, keep taxing me, and I'm gonna leave, and you can have your pied-à-terre, try to sell that. Don't you think there is some merit to that argument of people just leaving?
Sure. Look, I think we need to take that very seriously always, especially for questions like income taxes, where you could pick up and change your residency. And look, we did raise income taxes in 2021, and it didn't cause a mass exodus, but I still think we need to be cautious. We just don't know how this will play out in the future. Pied-à-terre tax, a little bit different, because these are people who already are not claiming New York as their place of residence.
Right.
So,
right.
But I've heard from people in the real estate industry who are concerned that this would mean people are less likely to buy these types of homes, and that could impact the market. And of course, there's an upside because it might make it easier for New Yorkers to buy these homes. But we should be wary of that. But at the end of the day, I think this is probably the kind of tax that's least likely to cause those kinds of disruptions, because again, the people who already don't live here, and their homes, which you can't move. So I think on balance, this is still a prudent thing.
So, Controller, let me ask you this. Explain the mentality to me of those who will talk about the budget gap and keep hiring more people, keep spending more. You know you're spending more than you should. You wouldn't do in your private household, and yet you do it with government funds. When I say you, I'm talking about a number of individuals in government.
It's a problem.
But what's the thinking behind that? That it's not my money, it's government's money. It's, we'll find it elsewhere. Let the wealthy pay. We need these expenditures. What is the mentality?
I thought you were a Republican, Rabbi. I didn't know you were against taxing spend. You can now please answer his question. I want to know.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it's spend then tax. Yeah.
Exactly. Look, we've had a 16-year bull run on Wall Street since the financial crisis of 2008. And it's true that expenses have been growing really fast in New York. Certainly faster than inflation and faster than population growth. But because Wall Street has done so well, and we have essentially avoided a recession. Now, COVID was a unique moment, but there we had this huge infusion of billions of dollars of federal aid, and we quickly got beyond it. So look, I was in the city council for 8 years, and our problem was how to divide surplus every year. And this is the first time since the financial crisis where our problem is the opposite. It's how to deal with a budget shortfall. And I think we've gotten a little bit out of practice at finding savings and, of course, investing in important programs, but making sure that those programs don't get out of control. And, I'll give you an example of the kind of thing that worries me. We have a program which is actually wonderful. It's housing vouchers. It's like a New York City version of Section 8. It's called City Fest. And it's very helpful, very important for families who might be in a homeless shelter, and helps them pay for private housing. But guys, it's growing by 4% a month. And it's now over 70,000 households. And we project that it will hit something like $2.6 billion next year, which is, for perspective, more than the entire budget of HPD. And it's not sustainable to have a city program growing at 4% a month, which means it doubles every year and a half. And it's going to be tough, but that's the kind of thing that we're just going to have to slow the growth of it. And I hope that we have what it takes to do that. But that's the kind of decision that we haven't had to make for a lot of years as the budget has boomed and we've only had surpluses.
Controller, we've got to go to a break, but when we come back, I want to ask you about a statement that you made that Wall Street has done so well, because Wall Street has done so well, but for who? We got to take a break. Stay tuned for more of The Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Networks.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And we're speaking with Controller Mark Levine, 46th Controller of the City of New York. Rev?
Yeah, so, we say quick statements because Wall Street has done so well, but put on the brakes for a minute. As we were talking about during the break, the top 10% of Americans own 93% of the stocks. And that creates a massive wealth gap. So it's doing well, but for who and how do the rest of us benefit?
Yeah, I mean, this is the contradiction of New York's economy right now. In so many ways, we're booming. And it's not just the stock market. Offices are being rented again, even in high-end buildings. There's huge demand for housing, including luxury housing. But on the other hand, rents are out of control. We passed a very unfortunate milestone in Manhattan. For the first time ever, rents are now at a median of $5,000 a month. We've never seen it. So this is really a threat. And it's part of why we have a record number of people in our homeless shelters now, something like 85,000 a night, which is way beyond what we've seen historically. Also, I should mention that the job market has been a weak spot in the economic picture for us. And we've basically stopped creating jobs. We're flat. That's particularly tough for young people. Talk to a person in their 20s who's just out of college. It's a very hard time for them to get a job. And the unemployment rate in general is ticking up, and it's hitting Black New Yorkers particularly hard as well. So there are warning signs. And by the way, look ahead and you see the possible impact of the Iran war and the ongoing tariff policy and AI on the horizon. And I'm actually worried about this job situation. It's probably my number one economic concern for New Yorkers. But Rev, your point is right. We have enormous inequality in this economy. It is arguably the worst it's been since the Gilded Age. And I fear that it's getting worse, in part driven by some of these technological shifts. AI is creating a lot of wealth, but also, I think, creating a lot of inequality. And I worry that will be accelerated as the technology moves forward. So I think we need ways to deal with this.
Yeah, and the paradox is that if Wall Street doesn't, I said the paradox of this is if Wall Street doesn't do well, the worker still gets hurt.
And also, who's doing a lot of the hiring? I mean, it's very easy to point an accusatory finger at others, but those others that we criticize benefit us. So it's got to be, you got to be very careful with generalizations. Controller, you made some interesting proposals. One, I think, was historic last week, wasn't it? About housing, investing some pension funds in housing. You talk about that?
Right. Well, look, yes, in the midst of this terrible affordability crisis, we need to build more housing, more affordable housing, and we're short of financing to do that. We put forward a plan that'll help solve that problem by investing in a prudent way $4 billion of New York City's pension funds to create and preserve affordable housing all over New York City, new construction, and preserving existing affordable housing, helping to convert vacant office buildings into residences. Huge potential here. Would be far and away the biggest investment we've ever made through our pension funds. And I think it would be a jolt of energy to the market to build the housing that we so desperately need.
And what about unemployment? Right? I'm sorry. Just as a follow-up, you also have a proposal for youth unemployment. Controller, am I right?
I've called attention to the crisis, and I was speaking about it here a moment ago. Look, the solution to youth unemployment, to employment overall in New York City, is to make this a place where companies want to hire, where they want to grow, where they want to invest, And right now, we're kind of treading water on that. There's not been a mass exodus of companies, but the growth is happening elsewhere. You look at J.P. Morgan Chase. It's great that they just built this tower on Park Avenue, but they have more employees in Texas than they do in New York. Goldman Sachs, Lower Manhattan, they're not leaving Manhattan, but all their growth is outside of New York City. And I'm just seeing news coming in right now that Citadel, which is a major hedge fund, which had been proposing to build another tower on Park Avenue with, I think, like 2,000 jobs, is now pausing to reconsider. So I think we got to be wary of this trend, and we have to ask ourselves, what will it take to get firms investing and hiring here? I think partly we can focus on those sectors that are growing, like AI and technology and life sciences and green technology, and do more to help attract them to make this. I think this should be one of the strongest concentrations of AI companies in the world. I think we could be. We have so much talent here. I think partly this is also an education challenge. We got to make sure that CUNY and even K-12 is aligned with the skills that employers need in this fast-changing landscape. There's many challenges here. The bottom line is this needs to be a place where people want to grow their businesses and hire for the benefit of all New Yorkers.
Yeah, let me speak to the pension fund, because Atlantic Yards, that is partnering to build some 5,000 units of affordable housing. Of course, it's going to be mixed, but those kind of things are happening at the same time that these towers are being built, correct?
Yeah, so this is a big project. It's been a long time coming, 20 years since Atlantic Yards kicked off. And there's been a lot of delays on this large amount of affordable housing. It's not easy because they have to build a deck over active train tracks. So it's going to be difficult to finance, but it's very important. And we're also looking at that deal as something that we could potentially invest in. So that's an example of the kind of thing that needs help on financing and would yield great results for New Yorkers.
You know, a number of times, Controller, people talk about a rainy day fund that we have. That we're going to solve the budget gap. We have to take money from the rainy day fund. Discuss that fund with us.
Yeah, look, just like you have a piggy bank at home.
No, the Rev does. The Rev. He has the piggy as well as the bank.
He wouldn't have a piggy.
He's a whole pen.
Not the piggy.
Not sure what the kosher version of that is.
Yeah.
But anyway. So the city of New York has a place where it puts money aside. It's called the Rainy Day Fund. And the idea is when times are good, you put money in. But if we get into a crisis like a recession or a natural disaster or, God forbid, another pandemic, you can take out. Unfortunately, that's not really how it's being managed. It has relatively little in it right now, despite the fact that we've had years of booms in Wall Street. And this year, this mayor's initial proposal actually called for withdrawing a couple billion out of our reserves. And we put forward a plan to make sure that we do better going forward. It would give you strict rules, and it would say in times that are good, if a lot of tax revenue is coming in, if the economy is growing, there's a formula that says you got to put money into the rainy day fund. And it limits when you can take out, and it has a list of circumstances like a recession, like a large terrorist attack, etc.
Controller,
in your case, it takes 8 years.
Yeah, we've come to the end of the interview. Just want to say, I think people listening to you feel relieved to some extent. They're heartened that you are sitting there as a watchdog of the city funds and a great protector of people's earnings, of people's, their hopes and aspirations going forward. You need to make sure the city is solvent when you're on home. So thank you, and make sure that I'm listed as a recipient on the Rev's pensions, so I know that when I retire, I'll be very comfortable.
You want that by check or electronic funds transfer?
Cash.
Exactly.
Wire transfer, and do it now. Don't wait. Do it now. Thank you so much. Always, you're a great friend. You're a great leader, and we're very fortunate to have you.
Thank you, Controller.
Bye-bye.
And stay tuned for more of The Rev and the Rabbi. We'll be right back right here on Red Apple Radio Network.
Hey, marketers, listen up. Before this, there was this. Our voice. It's how we shared knowledge, build communities. Well, guess what? Voice is back. That's why Spotify Advertising has published a new report, The Sound On Era, because audio moves culture forward. And if your brand wants to be heard, you need a Sound On strategy. Go to ads.spotify.com to download The Sound On Era and turn up the volume on your business.